people start to come in, I'm going to go ahead and get started, and I'm going to give a great big welcome to one and all. I am sending you wishes this evening for safety and peace and great stories, because that's what we'll be talking about tonight. I'm Alison Green-Myers. My pronouns are she, her. I am the program director here at the Highlights Foundation, and I'm joining you tonight from northeastern Pennsylvania on the traditional and contemporary lands of the Lenape people. Welcome to a very special June HF Gather. With me tonight, you'll see lots of friends' faces from our Highlights Foundation team. We have our Executive Director, George Brown. Hi, George. It's nice to see you. And we have our Program Manager, Alex Villasante. More from Alex in just a moment. And then, of course, our lovely panelists. A note for all of you out there as attendees, this is a webinar, so unfortunately we can't see your video or hear your audio during the session, but we can see everything you put in the chat, which is lovely. And we can also see any questions that you pop into the Q&A feature. Tonight during the live session, there aren't captions available, but there will be captions available during the recording that will go out within 24 hours. And so you'll be able to see those captions. If you're here with us live, like I said, please feel free to put those hellos in the chat feature. And we would love you to separate your questions though, and put the questions in the Q&A feature so that we can get to just as many as possible during our celebration tonight. I want to remind you all that in these spaces, in the chat, here on Zoom, if you join us at the Retreat Center, we strive for a safe and inclusive environment. And that means coming into our sessions with no hate, no harm, and no harassment of any kind. Let's take good care of each other. It's time. And let's look for ways that we can support children and support stories and support storytellers like the amazing storytellers we have gathered here with us. Whew. Tonight is all about supporting storytellers and all about supporting great books. When Alex and I were sitting down talking about the June Gather, we really went to our happy place because we started talking about books upon books and all the books we wanted to shout about right now. That's one of the greatest gifts I think that we can give storytellers. Talk about the stories you love. Support storytellers by sharing those books with others, especially in our space when we're talking to children and teens. We want to get those books into kids' hands. And the best thing you can do, the biggest advocate you can be, is walking those books into a library, into a school, maybe walking around the pool and saying, hey, have you read this great one? And passing that right along. So I've asked each of our panelists to offer a little bit of love tonight too, and support as we celebrate pride-filled stories together. And I get to kick things off, which I'll totally just say that is one perk for sure of this job. I get to celebrate a book tonight, and we tried to keep them recent reads. That's what Alex and I were trying to do, because if we didn't, we would end up making 45-minute long videos about one book, which we've done.
It was really hard. It was really, really hard.
I am almost certain if you have been in a Zoom room with me or a room with me in the past 2 weeks, you've heard me mention this book. I think just today alone, I've probably talked about this book 4 times on different Zoom calls. This is Man of War. It's Corey McCarthy's latest YA. This novel is just amazing. Corey brings us into River's very full life. And along his journey, we are in the water, we are out of the water, and we are looking at just all of the wonderful ways that River can come into his own. It reaffirms the need for fluidity, for flexibility, for creating found families and generous spaces. There is queer and trans joy in this book. It is just everything. And the way that time is handled in this book is nothing short of genius. So thank you for this one, Corey. That'll be one of my celebration books tonight. And really, for anyone who spends time with me in the next few weeks, we'll be talking about it. So that'll be great. Another celebration that I wanted to do was another recent read, and it's an anthology. I love collections of short stories because you just get a taste of so many different things. I am a huge fan of the Zodiac. We've had themed birthday parties at our home where people have been asked to identify all sorts of things about their sign. There is a new collection of YA love stories called All Signs Point to Yes. It is a love story for every sign. My favorite story inside this collection, it's way in the back. It's about Capricorn, which isn't my sign, but I really like the person who wrote it. It's called Mucho, Mucho Amor. It has lines that remind me of the author from My Girl is So Smart Like That, which I think I've heard her say before, to I'll Go Get the Snacks, which I know I've heard her say before, talk about bringing real life into print, to a lovely line like, of course I know, Ma, above all, love, lots and lots of love. This story is so you, Alex Villasante, and it is beautiful. So we'll celebrate you tonight along with all of our stories. This book just came out 2 weeks ago, and it is stunning. So I will pass things on to you. What did you bring, Alex? What are you celebrating tonight?
Okay, way to make me cry. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so I also, because Alison has really been talking about this book all week, I just went out and bought it because I'm like, what else do you do? Oh, you love this book? You, yes, absolutely bought it immediately. And talking about, so Alison also said, only pick 2 books. And so then I did that. And then I'm going to not do that now by also saying, one of the reasons that I could write Mucho, Mucho Amor in that anthology is because I read an early draft of Anne-Marie McLemore's Reign of Diamonds in this book, in this anthology. And it really taught me that they are an incredible writer, of course, but this is the first time I've seen them write science fiction. I'm like, oh, that opened up my entire world. Like, you can write that, you can write so it really gave me confidence to write other kinds of stories and short stories and really just like fall in love with the whole thing. So I had to do that. So that's one of my books to celebrate, and one of my it's an amazing story with a plot twist. It's so good. But the whole book, the whole anthology, I really recommend. But Reign of Diamonds. Okay. The book that I'm reading right now is The Lesbiana's Guide to Catholic School. As someone who has gone to Catholic school, I really identified with Senora Regis's, just the way that they are able to be extremely funny and incisive and have just the most incredible voice and poignant at the same time. And there's no sacrifice of meaning and feeling for that funny voice. It's just there all on the page, and it is beautiful. And watching Jamie struggle as she tries to find her place in this really restrictive Catholic school and go, as she says at one point, I'm going to go stealth gay like Kristen Stewart. It's very, very funny and heartfelt, and you just root for her the entire way. So that is one of my recommendations. And then the other one, because at the Highlands Foundation, we just had, it's almost ending. It's an online workshop called Writing the Rainbow, and 2 of the faculty members, Leslie Newman and Rob Sanders, who are just incredible writers of picture books and poets, and they had in their resources read alouds, and I was like, oh, as I'm in there doing my work, I'll watch this read aloud for this book, Prince and Knight, and I just fell in love, like Disney violin, sunlit gorgeousness. I fell in love with this book. I mean, look at this dragon. Look at this. The art is incredible. The words are incredible. Like the challenging of like the gender norms and what is strength is so incredible that I cannot, like, I read it to my kids. My kids are in their teens. I read it to my kids and they loved it. So those are my two choices, three choices. I could go on. I really could. But shall I kick it off to somebody, Alison?
Yeah, I think if M. Dickson would be willing to step up next. M, for those of you who don't know, is the co-founder of the Gender Diverse Literary Coalition. Pronouns may vary. I think, M, this is the first time you'll be doing something with the Highlights Foundation, and we're so happy to have you here with us. What have you brought with you to celebrate tonight?
I have brought a lot of things with me to celebrate, so I'll try to like calm down a little bit. So I've got lots of stacks of books around me. So for example, Different Kinds of Fruit by Kyle Lukoff basically broke my brain in the best way possible, because I just felt such a kinship to all the questions being asked about, you know, who gets to have what identity, and the idea of, oh, I've always been myself, and then I hear this word like non-binary, and I'm like, oh, that's a thing you can be, which has basically been my whole experience of my entire life. And just full of kids and people just fighting the good fight to just let queer kids and people exist. And I cried a lot of times, and I like the little to the side little flag here, but I'd love to see that. And I've been my mom's a little busy right now, but this is only the second book ever that I've read, and I'm like, Mom, I need you to read this because you will understand. You're so good at understanding me, but you will understand so much better if you read this. So I'm working on that. I also wanted to give a shout out to this incredible anthology, this middle grade queer anthology that came out in the fall, co-edited by Catherine Locke and Nicole Melleby. And it is just, we've got every single protagonist of all the short stories all here. There's two like short comics. There's some in verse. There's Nicole's might be my favorite because it's a riff on the hit early 2000s song Stacy's Mom. And it's hilarious, and everyone needs that, and also just the whole thing. But I've worked part-time at a school library, and I just like would carry this around with me. We had a rainbow day in April, and I was like in rainbow pants, and like I had a flag as a cape. I had rainbow shoes, and I was just carrying this around like, have you seen this book? Have you seen this book? Hey, 5th grade. Hey, look at this. Have you seen this? We have this in the library. And it was just awesome. And the kids their faces just absolutely lighting up, being like, wait a second, there's like a non-binary pirate in that book. And there's a story about a non-binary pirate. Like, excuse me, I didn't know they could do that. So obsessed with this forever. I also recently read Alice Austin Lives Here by Alex Gino, which my dad's a history teacher, and so anything where there's queer history, I'm like, Dad, you should talk about this in class. Look, I found another one here. So I immediately was like, Dad, have you heard of Alice Austin? So Alice Austin was a photographer who took a lot of queer photos. People can say they were just gals being pals, but we all know that's not the case. So again, another middle grade and about kids sticking it to the man and doing the good fight. Loved it. Nicole Melleby's most recent, The Science of Being Angry, also just letting a kid feel emotions and figure things out for themselves. And if I try to tell details, I'll like cry because I don't even know how to express. Like, as a kid who was so stubborn and didn't understand why I was getting into trouble, I felt seen by little angry bean Joey here. And then I also I haven't read it yet, but I'm looking forward to reading finally The Passing Playbook. I was a soccer player, and I'm currently watching the NWSL, the National Women's Soccer League. Shout out to my team, OL Reign, and also a non-binary player, Quinn, who's on OL Reign. Shout out to them. So I've been waiting to read this, and I'm so excited. Anything with any queer soccer book, I'm immediately like, that's me. Let me buy that. But then I'm like, need to emotionally prepare myself because I know I will feel so seen. Anyway, sorry, that's a lot of the stuff. I And that was me narrowing it down. She, you know, Alison said about 2 books, and I have like 15 around me, and that was I was like, I
Wow.
can narrow it down to 5. I can do 5.
Cheated. I could have kept going.
I was trying to
The
be
good
quick.
news is we're going to talk about more books,
Yes.
because if we thought that was impossible to do for the 3 of us to pick, narrow it down to 2, think about trying to narrow down the titles from our panelists here.
Yep.
I certainly could not pick. Actually, I could. I have ranked before my Anna Marie McLemore favorite books before, but I won't do that in order right now. But I would say it is very difficult to put a favorite that is a tier when it comes to your book. So we have our panelists with us. We have Anna Marie McLemore. We have NoNieqa Ramos. We have Jas Hammonds. We have a lot of books to talk about tonight. So hello to you all and welcome. Thank you for sitting through our excited celebrations of stories we've been reading. We want to welcome you and bring you right onto the panel and say, please share with us your introductions, talk to us about your work, and share some stories you're ready to share before we get into some questions. Noni, do you want to go first?
I was hoping I'd be second, but I will go first. First is the worst. I was listening to you talk, and it made me reflect on something celebratory. You know, I'm going to say something that isn't said enough. I was hoping I'd have a queer child. I really was hoping that. I was crossing my fingers, but you know, that your child is whomever your child is going to be. And then it happened. And I didn't want to be too celebratory because you need to give them personal space and time to make their own decisions. And my child asked for this book that they were eyeballing in a bookstore. It might have been Curious Iguana, called The ABCs of LGBT. And this gave them some room and permission, without me being in their space again, to explore. But I was doing the happy dance in the other room. So then, you know, the day came and they sat at the dinner table and said, flip, flip, flip. I think this is who I feel that I am. And this was so momentous because maybe everyone can understand how it feels to be able to be in that space with your child and hear those beautiful words and know that you're going to do right by them. And you're going to do everything, in my case, opposite from what you've experienced. And you're going to do all the things that you want, you know, that you hope, can I have this chance to do that? And so now I just kind of wanted to bring that as one of my celebratory things. My child is very proud, is an activist, and that's a choice of theirs. And I want to say I'm celebrating them as first. And another thing I want to say is the introduction to my side of my father's side of the family has been extremely difficult. But I did have a Thea who said, I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to understand. What can I do? They went to their human resources department at their job before they spoke to me, did their own emotional labor, researched everything, then came back and said, do you have any books to recommend? Did not ask my child to explain, did not ask me to explain. I was floored. Then at which point we gave them, speaking of book recommendations, Beyond the Gender Binary Pocket Change Collective. There's these little skinny books, pocket books. And I said, I'm going to share this book with you. I'm not going to have you speak with my child yet. Okay, go ahead and do what you need to do. Ask your questions and the book can answer as much as possible. After that was all done, then we can just sit down and talk about whatever naturally occurs. And I kind of just want to share that because sometimes the celebrations are in the unexpected. As we know, we're all highly protected, mostly of children, and all of us as writers are here for the kids, you know, and we're fierce, right? So I have so many things about myself, but my biggest thing is that they have been able to carefully navigate through a whole lot of chaos and mess and find the people who our family, because as you all know, the fact of the matter is that isn't everybody that you expect all the time, and that can be disappointing. So I kind of want to start there with those celebrations of those books that my child still holds dear and are crinkled and all of that. And then all the books you've mentioned, everybody here, Em and Alex and Alison, yes, and amen, all those things. Anna Marie was one of the first people that I met before I debuted with the Disturbed Girls Dictionary, they probably don't remember, but I do. And I read one of their books, as all of them are extraordinary. And I thought, how is this possible? This person is only speaking to me. How is this possible that they're here, could completely validate that I deserve to think this way and feel this way? And it's just beautiful and normal. And I did go up to them and tell them, thank you. I remember it. And that's what happens when you do good with books like Anna Marie's. You touch people all the time in ways, and then they go off and you don't know how huge of an effect that is. So as Alison was saying, every book, I refuse to name one book, all of the Anna Marie books. And then finally, just as far as other books are concerned, yes, Alex, The Grief Keeper, one of my favorite all-time Lambda Award-winning books. And I agree that we need to focus on books of the present. Right now, I'm in picture book land. Probably everybody knows that. My YA books are actually not announced at this point. I have a couple, one with Alex that we're going to announce that's so beautifully queer and does retellings of classics, and we can't talk about. I know. But
Alex, talk about it.
Yes, but Alex's book combines everything. You want sci-fi, you want intrigue, you want to explore what it is like for somebody to come to this country and what migration is supposed to mean and what it doesn't mean in this country. You want beautiful smooching, kissing scenes. Yes, you write the best, most sweet and pure, beautiful, romantic kissing scenes. I'm going to leave it at that. So that's all the things that I'm celebrating of all the people. And then as far as me, I teach. I just spent the last week in Texas teaching newcomers story retellings. And I know that probably hits a lot of notes. It was amazing, and they can do anything. And they're blowing my mind every day. And then I do the picture books. I did Your Mama and centered single parents in this book, and also kind of smashed the patriarchy with the Yo Mama jokes and turned them all on their head a little bit. And I have to go back to my first YA because this was the book that ended my queer-nesia, like amnesia, where I was surrounded by cis people and I forgot, hey, I'm still gay. It's still there. So this book came out. It doesn't look like a love story, but it is. But people are like, oh, do you want to do the queer this and the queer that? I'm like, the queer? Oh, I'm queer. That's right. So there, I'll stop at that.
Oh, it is a delight to have you here with us this evening. Jas, can we move over to you? Can you talk to us a little bit? What are you working on? What are the books that you want to celebrate? Come forward, please.
Sure. I'm super excited to be here sharing space with Highlights. I came to Highlights as a baby writer and did it, was very new and it still holds such a special place in my heart. So it feels kind of surreal to be on a panel for Highlights now. But anyway, my name is Jas Hammonds. I use they and she pronouns. I am the author of the YA novel We Deserve Monuments. I'm traveling, so I unfortunately don't have any physical copies of the book to hold up, but I do have my beautiful cover that is not focusing, of course, but it is a YA coming of age novel about a queer girl who is uprooted her senior year of high school and moves down to the rural South to move in with her terminally ill estranged grandmother. There's a little bit of everything going on. We have some swoony love with the girl next door. We have family secrets, generational trauma, and generational joy. And that comes out in November 29th. And I am so excited to usher it into the world. It's a beautiful feeling knowing that, already people are reading the book and really responding to it. And that brings me to what I'm currently reading, and what I'm currently responding to is this book currently. It's called Deep in Providence. Oh, it came out maybe 2 weeks ago now by Rhys M. Nielsen. It is a YA novel. I think it's technically a fantasy, but it is just haunting and extremely intimate. It's a story about four girls, one unfortunately who dies in a car accident at the beginning of the novel, and the remaining three girls are attempting to use Filipino folklore to bring her back from the dead. And it's, you know, a story about grief, and it's queer and it's beautiful and it's like everything that I love in a novel. And I'm really taking my time with it. And I'm only like maybe 150 pages in, but every time I pick up the book, you know, it's just one of those like, ah, and I love those kind of books. And then I also just wanted to give a quick shout out to my friend Lynn Thompson, whose middle grade debut, The Best Liars in Riverview, came out earlier this year. Lynn and I were in Lambda Literary together, and I read a very early draft of this novel, and now it's out and it's beautiful. It's a middle grade story about a non-binary kid just finding themselves over the course of a summer. And it's just really, you know, really beautiful. And the language is fun, but also intimate. And it's just everything that I love in a novel. And a little bit about me, I'm a flight attendant and I'm always like constantly shifting locales. So I really cling to books to kind of like give me a sense of, you know, of home, like wherever I go. Like if I can pick up a book and I'm like, you know, I have a warm cup of tea and a good book, like I can try and make, you know, a little home out of everywhere that I am, which is currently me now in a hotel room. So again, so happy to be here, and I will stop gushing now.
See, look at all of, I mean, I saw a note in there from Bobby who said, my to be read pile just keeps growing. This is the exciting part of just hearing all of the stories and writing. Like right now, I'm just trying to go right off the side and write, but I know that I can listen to this again and take all these notes. AM, I am so happy to have you here with us this evening. We want you to talk about all the books. But can you start with an introduction and maybe did you pick just one of your stories or to share with us tonight, and something you're reading?
Hello, I am so happy to be here. I am so grateful to share space with all of you here who I admire so much. So thank you for having me. Thank you for being here. And part of what I'm thinking of right now is 3 years ago being at Highlights and telling Alex, so I think I'm a guy. I think I'm also a girl. What do I do? And Alex, instead of asking, what are you asking me for? What are you asking me about? What you just said, oh, let's take some pictures of you as a girl and as a guy. And it was one of the most like loving things and exactly what I needed at that time. So I just want to say thank you again for that. And I don't think I would have written my book that just came out, like McLemore, if I hadn't had friends like you who were like supporting me figuring out what I was in terms of gender identity and what I was doing and how I wanted to live in the world. So yeah, I'm honoring, my pronouns are they, them. I should have started with my name, right? And I write very queer, very trans, very Latin stories. McLemore is the most recent one, which is about Mexican-American non-binary trans boys, neurodivergence, specifically dyslexia and ADHD, and an enchanted world under a lake that starts to come above the surface. Oh, thank you. I'm so grateful I got to write. I'm so grateful I'm getting to write about like Latin, non-binary, and trans characters. It's something I'm still kind of pinching myself about. And that's also going to be my segue into sort of like pretending like I'm talking about one book, but talking about several at the same time. So I'm going to talk about a couple of books that I love in the Remixed Classic series. Please know that I am not biased just because I am writing one of them. My book is Self-Made Boys. It comes out in September. It's my transgender Gatsby. Cover was just revealed. So I am not biased just because I am part of this series. If anything, when I read each of these books that these authors are writing, I say, okay, I have to live up to that. I have to be as good as that, which is what I already thought, knowing I was going to write alongside these authors. But the more of these books I read, I'm just, the only thing that overcomes me thinking, oh no, I have to be that good to be part of this series, is just my joy at reading these books that I needed when I was growing up, but that I also need just as much now. One that I'll talk about is C.V. Lee's A Clash of Steel, which is Sapphic Treasure Island. Every book in this series is just spectacular and combines like humor and heart and just like grab you by the heart moments. Bethany C. Morrow's like Little Women was like, I was not a Little Woman person growing up. Like I just was like, okay, it's not for me. And that book, it took me days to just like come back from how much I love that book. And I cannot shut up about that book. I cannot shut up about this one, because Sapphic Treasure Island was something I needed growing up. Treasure Island was also something where I was like, I don't get it. I sort of like had my girlfriends being like, read Little Women, you'll love it. And I was saying, and I had my like friends who were boys saying like, read Treasure Island, you'll love it. And like, again, I was like, I don't get, it's not, but like everything that kind of love is there when I read the books in this series that make room for us and make room for our identities. Right now, I'm reading Travelers Along the Way, which is Amina May Safi's Robin Hood, and just the way that May, like on the same page, just the sheer poetry of language alongside these like one-liner jokes, just spectacular. And there are more to come that I'm so excited about. I am so grateful to be part of this series. I'm so grateful for every one of these books that I get to put on my shelf.
What a shelf it is. A good looking shelf back there. That was, I mean, we'll just take a moment here. We could all have a moment and just share our love for Alex, but I think we'll deepen the conversation. We're not.
I was just thinking, no, we're not doing that. What I was thinking was, I was looking at Anna Marie's shelf, and like it's almost like oh, my heart, like this was a roller coaster that my heart went on. It went there and it went there, and I'm looking, and I'm like, oh, and I'm talking to my heart. I'm like, ¿Te acuerdas? Do you remember? Like that was like, you were like thudding, and you were like, no, and you were like, yes, and so that's what Anna Marie's shelf does to me when I look at that. I look at their shelf and my heart's like, so
let's stay on that shelf then. Let's stay right there, and let's get into it. We have other celebrations. We definitely want to celebrate stories, but we also want to celebrate careers, because there are some pretty spectacular careers right here on the scene. We want to talk about our readers. We want to talk about bringing stories way out into the open. And I think, Anna Marie, we would love to start with you. Alex was just saying too, when I think about reading The Weight of Feathers, it feels like moons ago, but instantly in that book, there was something untouchable in your words. And you bring that in every single story you write. It's imaginative. It's colorful. I can taste it. I can feel it. You're right there. It is something that you have crafted in everything, and yet all of your stories are so different. So here we are.
We know in space. In space,
right?
It's not just like the magical realism and the gorgeous flowers and the sensory. You got me started, and now here I go. But doing it in space. Okay.
I know. And that's, I think there's magic there. We know that there is magic there, but could you talk to us a little bit about your journey into publishing, about, bringing a debut novel out and then nearly 10 novels in, plus, countless short stories. What is it that is exciting you about staying in the industry, and what brought you in? Tell us a little bit about your journey and where you're going, if you would.
Well, you both are giving me so many feelings, so I need a minute. Good feelings, but I need a minute, and I'll take that minute by saying, Alex, I think I owe you the apology of the undiagnosed ADHD brain, because I now remember, like, before getting diagnosed and you trying to say, like, and I think he's like, you giving me notes on a manuscript and me looking out the window at like the marmota, like I don't, there aren't really like groundhogs like where I live, like in my part of California. So you get these like big fuzzy marmotas at highlights, and Alex is trying to give me notes about like character journey and setting and stuff, and I'm just like looking out at the fuzzy thing. So I heard you. I hope you know that, but also it was probably really frustrating trying to be like, okay, eyes here, I know it's cute, but like, so you have very cute animals at highlights.
We do.
So something I appreciate, like when you talk about science fiction, is like I hope for the like all of the brilliant authors, artists in this room is getting to write like all over the map in all the ways that you want to, because that is something I want for us. And that is something I'm grateful to be doing more and more. It's something I'm grateful to be reading more and more as a reader, something I'm grateful to be writing more and more as an author. Writing 1920s is something I'm so excited to do in Self-Made Boys. My 2023 book is a co-write with mi marido, and it's high fantasy, like sword and sorcery, but like with trans and Latin people with disabilities, like fights with canes, fights with people who have disabilities. So being able to make room for who we are and be able to go anywhere we want in terms of genre, in terms of setting, in terms of where our hearts lead us. It's something I want for all of us. And it's something I hope we get space for, because selfishly, I want to be able to read those books from all of the authors I love. I want to be able to read the books that go everywhere that the authors I love want to go. So this is the part where I think, what was the question? Oh yeah, I remember the question now. Okay, so talking about publishing journey, I'm really grateful to have had my debut novel come out at a time where We Need Diverse Books was really like nurturing a lot of conversations that were happening, but that needed more support, and that were long overdue. And all of the work that they did, that they have done, that they are continuing to do, and the way that so many of us like found each other around that time is something that I'm really grateful for, because I needed that. And I think without it, I wouldn't have written my second book, When the Moon Was Ours, which started out as me trying to think, okay, my first book, I sort of got away with something. I got away with writing about like a Mexican family. I need to be good now and write like a white straight cis book. And I tried to do that, and it went terribly. Like the book was horrible. And eventually and for anyone who knows When the Moon Was Ours, it's about as not like straight, white, and cis as you can get. So it was a completely different book that I was trying to write and that I was trying to work with. And then I had my editor say, like, I will send this to production on the strength of the language alone, if this is the book you want to be your second book. Is it the book you want to be your second book? And I said, no, it's not. Can you get me more time? So she did. And sometimes you need people to ask you questions when they know when they know that you need that. So having that instance of, okay, I'm going to write the book I actually want to write. My editor basically just told me to write the book that I want to write. And that book was When the Moon Was Ours. And that was when I sort of started opening that door to, okay, this is my queerness, my cultural identity, my color, my transness that I wasn't willing to recognize was my transness and just thought was my husband's transness at the time. These can be in a book at the same time. So being able to bring in more and more intersectional identity, it's something that I knew I wanted as a reader. It's something I always looked for as a reader. And then slowly it was something I gave myself more and more space for as an author.
Beautiful. And have you done more books with that editor?
Yeah, it's like all of my books except Miss Meteor, which was over at where Taylor Kimihio was writing at the time. We were over at Harper for Miss Meteor. We did that one together. All of my solo books and my my book with my husband next year are all with Kat Brzezowski at Firewall and Friends. except for Self-Made Boys, which are all with Emily Settle, who is the Remix Classics editor, also at 501 Friends. So I'm really grateful to been able to build a relationship with Kat, build a relationship at 501 Friends, so that when I had this book that I was doing with my husband that had this fantasy book with two trans protagonists, this is the book that's going to come out in 2023, I could say, okay, I know these people, I know this team, I feel safe bringing another trans writer here. And that's something that I take seriously, and that's important. Like, we tell each other like what are safe spaces, we talk to each other about ways that we can protect each other, and it's something I really value and I'm really grateful for in this community.
Beautiful. It is. We're looking forward to the next book and the next book, but I think it is really important to look back to. We were having a conversation earlier today in another class, and someone said, you know, is there a book that you could pick up and turn to a page at any moment, and it's one of those books that grounds you? And When the Moon Was Ours is so much that book. It's, you know, and I remember shortly after that book came out, you came to the Highlights Foundation for the first time, and it was an arresting moment. It was like, I cannot believe the person that created this story is standing in this space with us right now. And so we're so grateful for all of your stories, and really can't wait for more and more. Let's keep going. That's a lovely transition, I think, into asking Noni a big question here, because Anna Marie brought up the point of having the wonder and the freedom to be able to write what you choose to write. And when I look at the stories that you're putting out, Noni, I mean, it's amazing. I just in your introduction, holding up, you know, different stories, holding up a YA, holding up these picture books, that also cover a major age range where we're introducing very young children to you and your stories, and it's growing with kids. So, you know, can you talk to us a little bit? I know the passion that you have for teaching too, so that must bring joy to it. How do you choose what your next project is going to be and what audience you're going to address? And really, what does this mean to you to be able to reach kids along their reading journey, along their connection to story?
I had to take notes because with Anna Marie, I had so many shiny thoughts and I couldn't keep track of them the way you can't keep track of all the stars. I was like, this one and this one. I think when I was listening to Anna Marie, I was thinking about the idea of needing permission. And it's sort of like this, you know, a child needs to be told that they're loved. They can't just assume it or imagine it, or they have to be directly told. And I think I'm hoping that kind of this cohort and this generation of writers is giving the unequivocal permission to everybody else to say, you don't have to ask anymore. That's what I'm feeling like. You know, we have to feel like we keep asking. I'm going through every other week existential crises and the do I belong here? And even with this panel, I'm like, am I supposed to be in this space? You know, I just never feel settled. And I'm hoping that all of the children and the adults that are reading our books, I want them to take that for granted, that they will come to a point where they're not even thinking that, the way that other privileged persons don't ever consider. They just consider, I'm a human being, so therefore I have the permission to imagine, I have the permission to create, I have the permission to take up space. Is that not what we want? Don't we want our kids and our adults to take that for granted? And the reason that I say adults is something also that everybody has touched on. You know, when I write books like Your Mama, or when I write books like Beauty Woke, I never just write for children. And what I mean is, every adult has that child inside that never, ever, ever experienced the nurturing, that experienced the validation, or did experience really terrible erasure, you know? And so when I get asked, this seems to be also catering to adults. The answer is this was on purpose because all the adults who are reading this, those children are never, ever, ever going to not be in recovery. That's the experience that we're all going to have in this room. It just doesn't happen. We heal, and then we need to sit with things, and we come together and we experience more healing. So, you know, when I wrote, Beauty Woke, you know, that was for the adults and adults who have come to me and said, thank you, because you know what? This is the first time, and some of these adults are in their 40s and their 50s or et cetera, who are saying, this is the first time where I felt like I was being recognized for all the specific things about me, all the things that make me myself, all the grand things and the small things. Those are all the things that are important for us to know, whether it's our culture, you know, for Beauty Woke, it's recognizing and honoring our Taino indigenous roots as Puerto Ricans, our Black roots as Puerto Ricans, just being Puerto Rican and how complex that is, recognizing the complexity of all Latinidad, period, and the fact that there's nothing about that is linear or monolithic, and recognizing how complex it is that gender identity is. You know, recognizing that, you know, with the Disturbables Dictionary, the idea is, no, the definition of ourselves is always evolving. So I think to answer your question and to like tie it all together, I think the reason why, first of all, that I'm in this picture book realm and I'm also in this young adult realm is because I can't drop the F-bomb in middle grade books. That's why they're grade books. I can't do it. I keep trying, and I'm contracted to write a short story, and I'm like, oh my, I'm like the cat stuck in a tree. I can't do it. But moving aside from why I can't write middle grade at this moment, everything that like my students, my child, all of us in this room, the minute that we step out of sacred safe space, right? Like I see this as sacred safe space, and it always has been at Highlights. We take risks every minute of every day. It just is. That could be even being your family, as it is the case for me, where Anna Marie, I'm going to kind of reference this because you had posted this on Twitter, and I thought I'm more open with the people in the space that I don't even know than I can be with members of my own family. There are people in my own family where my own parent, where I cannot and will not, because it's just too excruciating, be the person that I am. And I can't, and then, but yet I'm here with all of you, people I've just met, where I will feel more comfortable, you know? And so there's that weird dichotomy going on with a lot of us. So why write these books? Because if we keep writing these books and we put these picture books in the hands of children, children do not come with this. All these problems of hate are adult. They are manufactured. They are manufactured. And when children who are naturally embracing and enjoying of all these things, difference, you know, the fact that human beings make choices and experiment, put a dress up in front of a bunch of kids. If they are purely being themselves, they're going to wear whatever they want to wear. They're going to be whoever they want to be. The only time they hesitate is when we make them hesitate and we make them feel shame. And so if they have those picture books in their hands, it's not announced yet, but I am going to say I did a queer retelling of Cinderella because I'm so sick of waiting. That story, okay, I've had it. That story is going to grant that permission. It's to just be, what is it that you want to be? How do you want to express yourself? Is it different on Tuesday than it was on Monday? Great. Okay, whatever that is. And this is also going to create community for those kids, because all the other kids who maybe they're not queer are going to say, guess what? This is just the world. This is just the world that we're in. And so when we do that and build foundations, we, instead of constantly having to come into this world and say, as we do now, we're going to break, we're going to disrupt, we're going to blow it all up. Those kids are the building blocks of saying, no, this is the way the world is, and we are the ones who are building it. And they won't have to say we have to destroy and break and disrupt all these things that we've done to ourselves. So that's why we have those picture books, because again, it's unconditional love. I love you. I love you the way you are on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday. I love it if on Thursday you're a mess. I love it on Friday if you decided you're Monday again. I love it if you're the same every day of the week. And then the other bridge to the YA that we're all writing here, you know, with Jas's book and thinking about what that's going to do for the world when that comes out. We're going to examine, we're going to reflect, I'm going to learn, I'm going to be educated. I'm going to be entertained. Guess what? We get to do that. We get to just entertain and just not educate y'all. Okay, I'm going to read that book and I'm going to have my mind blown. And these are the things that the kids are way ahead of us. They need that book. They need that book because for them, this is the reality for most of them, unless they've been some manufactured, corrupted nonsense that they know is reality. And they need that other person to say, yes, yes to how you feel. Yes to what you understand. Yes, that's fact. Yes, that's truth. Yes, that's actual reality. Not all the gaslighting going on the other end. And lastly, rescue. And I want to end with that. You know, Alex knows I had so many issues with my sophomore book. The truth is, it caused me so many headaches. And I just wanted to throw it at times until I got a letter from a kid who told me that it saved his life. Everything that I went through means nothing because of that one kid. All the books that we're writing are rescue. All the books that we're writing, truly, without exaggeration, I couldn't believe when I read it, are the thing that's going to make sure that that kid says, I'm gonna keep going because I know that those people are out there for me. And then in the future, we don't have to do that anymore. We can just say, these are just the books. Read a book about a freaking unicorn or a dragon or fairies or whatever. We don't always have to deal with the pain. So that is why we are all here.
Y'all, can I just explain to you what it is like to go on a writing retreat with NoNieqa Ramos? You're sitting there and you think that the words that you're doing are like make sense and stuff. And then they open their mouth and you're like, I gotta up my game. I gotta up my game a lot. Oh, hell, I gotta really work hard.
I just took so many notes. I just took so many notes.
Yes, this is what it's like to be around them. Their brain is a gorgeous, like, cauldron of creativity. It's ridiculous. Don't sit next to them if you're just like, I need to produce some words that kind of don't suck. Oh, hell. So anyway, that's all I'm saying. But I just wrote down so many of your words. Noni, thank you for that. It's just so inspiring. It's their world and they're going to build it. Just, yeah, I'm done.
Beautiful. I'm so glad you brought up the debut that is coming too, because I feel like it's so special. Just like, I can't tell you, it is so special. I remember sitting and you're bringing your story out this fall, but we're getting peeks into it all the way through, and it is such a celebration. Like, talk about celebratory. And you hear that term, you hear debut an awful lot, and you think a lot about the book itself. But what I think is special about this year too, it's that you're not just bringing yourself to the page, you're bringing yourself into social media and into the school and library market and into every reader that you shake hands with and into ALA and here on a panel and here and there and there. You know, that's a lot. So you've crafted this gorgeous story, and this story says so much about you, right? Mm-hmm. And so you're saying, yes, here's this story here. Let's engage in this together. And also, because it's your debut year, we're saying, and this is you, and we get to know you, and we get to know your stories. And I mean, it's such an exciting year. I want to ask first, how are you feeling? Because it is a lot. And then second, you know, talk about bringing this book into the spotlight. Talk about the support you've had and the support that you're looking for. We're all here. Everyone is here so that we can support you as you bring this book to readers. It's a celebration.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm like getting teary-eyed. I was actually just talking to my partner yesterday, saying that I feel like things are happening so fast that I am not really getting a chance to process them. Like, I will be getting an email from school and marketing, and then an email from PR, and then marketing is like, and it's like, and you know, my editors be like, these are final pass pages, and like, it's like the book is done at this point. So it's definitely been like, it's like full speed ahead. And this is after we pushed the book back. Like, I can't even imagine if, originally it was supposed to come out in July. I can't even imagine how much more stressed I would be if that was the case. So yeah, we're about 5 months out. I actually had a meeting today with my marketing meeting, essentially, where I was, they were telling me everything that they want to do for the book. And it was just a moment where I was sitting there and, we're on a Zoom call and there was like 13 people in there, and they were just like, it was a moment where I was like, all of these people believe in my book. And it was just really beautiful. And, and it was an amazing feeling. But before that, I was thinking about the first time that I came to highlights when, it was 2018. I had just finished this book, like the very first draft, messy. I didn't know like anybody in the writing community. I really just showed up in Pennsylvania and I was like, hi, I'm here. And it was just a moment. That was the first time really as that I felt a community of authors and writers. And I looked around and I was like, maybe I can do this. Like, I was matched with Lamar Giles as my mentor. And we had so many great, like Alex, like we had so many great conversations with Linda, like at night, like just a moment where I was like, I'm surrounded by people who love books and they love words and they want to, change kids' lives with them. And it was truly just a beautiful moment. And ever since then, it's just continued to really grow organically, of just trying to build community, try to like really carve this story into what it ultimately what I want it to say. By the time that it comes out, it'll be 6 years of just this one story that I've been working on, like from the first draft to the finished product. So it has been like a bit of a bittersweet, like push and pull of, like when you're an author and, this thing that was just yours, that was just so yours, so personal. And then you see, it going out into the world and it's not yours anymore. And like, sometimes that's beautiful. And sometimes it's like, nerve-wracking and anxiety inducing, and people are tagging you in your reviews and people are saying like, I love this, I hated this, and it's a lot, y'all. Like it's a lot. And I think also just tying back to your question about social media, it's just like that access, that immediate access that people that readers have to you. Because when I was younger and a teenager, like if I read a book and there wasn't Twitter, there wasn't Instagram, I couldn't go find the author and then find out everything about their lives. Essentially, it was just kind of like they were these mysterious people in their cabins with their with their laptops and their typewriters. So I think that I'm still learning about that, trying to balance that that availability that and that what am I looking for, like transparency as a writer, and just trying to tell people like, this is how it is. Like there are days when I feel lonely, there are days when I'm like, I don't know if I'm doing this right. And also saving some pieces for me, some sweetness for me, because I am extremely proud ultimately of this book. And at the end of the day, I did the best that I could do with it, and it's that's all that I can do at the end of the day. And I made something that I am proud of, and hopefully it finds the people that it needs to.
I have no doubt. And I hope you feel us all here too, and support and to reach out. I think one thing it's hard to hear from a lot of adults. Noni, when you said about the kid writing to you, how that really impacted you, I think that's a big piece. Right now, you're in that debut time when it's so many conversations with adults and it's so much explaining yourself. And when a kid sees themselves in that book, you're not explaining anything, because they see themselves and they're reaching out to you to say thank you. And they're reaching out to you with a big connection. And so you're going to shift from all of this talk going out about who you are and why did you do this and how did you do this, to that shift when you're seen by your readers. And oh, I just can't wait for that moment for you. It's going to be magical. It's going to be so much. I am noticing I have not looked at the time at all. Anyone else in the room? Typically we try and keep our gathers to about an hour, and we're coming right up upon that. I know the three of you have offered us so much. Your words have meant so much tonight. Alex, were you able to pull any questions? Any questions come up, or was everyone else just as enamored here?
I think it was just a love fest. It was just like, how can we get these books? How can we hang out with these people? It's just like lots of like hearts. I mean, it's basically what we're doing on screen, they're doing in the chat box. So, but I did want to quickly say one thing to Jas, because I'm super excited for you, of course. And you're amazing, and you know that because I've told you that privately. But one of the things that I love about getting your book out there and having that, like Alison said, that child reader, is that you're going to realize that not only are they seeing themselves, that they are creating something new when they read your words. So that book becomes something else through them. And that is a magic like no other. And I am like geeked for it to happen to you, because it's going to happen to you and it's going to be the most amazing thing. And it will would you text me? Like, I'm really excited for that, for when that happens.
Every time.
Yes, I will call you.
It's going to be beautiful.
There is one question I would love to add, just one more question. Em came to us here at the Highlights Foundation about a year ago, I think. Linda Epstein, who beloved Linda Epstein, saw a tweet talk about social media bringing people together, and I think it said something about is there a writers retreat, is there a gender diverse writers retreat, or is there a place where we can build a space, or something like that. I can't even remember. And we were able to connect and just start talking about programming, and it all came from this beautiful initiative that you have, Pronouns May Vary. We didn't really get a chance to talk about it at the top of the session, and I wonder if, as we're concluding, you could just share a little bit about Pronouns May Vary with us.
Absolutely. So we're still in very early stages because life has hit all of us like a truck, just like all of you, as I'm sure. But like Alison was saying, this really came from a space of like there's a lot of great queer spaces, there's a lot of great whatever spaces, but there are unique challenges to being gender diverse in the world that we're in, especially when it comes to being in the world of children's literature and thinking about how to navigate school visits. And okay, what if you change your name and have your dead name on your old books? How do you have that conversation? And thinking that gender diverse representation has a long way to go in terms of intersectionality, in terms of trans femme rep especially, and disability and everything. And thinking about, feel like for me, I felt like I was totally scrambling by myself and still learning about my own identity, and like I just need a space to talk to people and so that a few people reached out to me, and we've been having these conversations that have been just so special, and just we're talking earlier about sacred safe spaces. Like I can't even begin to express what having this like group chat of people who saw what I needed and were like, yes, let's talk and let's try to work together and see what we can do. I can't even begin to express how much that has meant to me and what a difference that has made for me, just like in confidence in myself and just allowing myself to be and exist. And I also just forgot to introduce myself and my pronouns earlier, but again, I use air pronouns. I use other pronouns too, but I'm really loving those right now. And I'm coming to you from the traditional lands of the Wampanoag Nation, specifically that of the Manamoic people. and I work at a school library part-time, and it's the school that I went to pre-K through 12th. So that's a whole other extra level of emotional resonance. And I'm a writer. I just feel like this is relevant to our current talk, but I did this little Peppa book that came out last month. It's like my first real published thing that I did. So I'm excited about that. Little Peppa's Rainbow. I was like, how nice of them to give me one with a rainbow. That was what a great opportunity. Shout out to editor Aaron Pascal, who's amazing. And I freelanced in various areas of children's publishing. So I was coming to this from like not just being a writer and being a reader, but being, hey, I've done, cultural accuracy services and authenticity reading work for big 5 publishers. I've done IP, I've done lots of things. And like, I wanted the space to be essentially what we want to be is a gender diverse literary coalition for Kidlit, created by gender diverse people in Kidlit for gender diverse people in Kidlit, whether that's readers, authors, illustrators, publishing professionals, like school librarians, whatever the case may be, because especially when it comes to children's lit and children themselves, we are all working together here on so many levels I'm also booksellers. I forgot to mention booksellers. We're all working together here to bring, to help support each other and to get the word out and to help each other in so many different ways. And so this is just meant to be a space of community and support. And again, we're still kind of in early stages of figuring out how exactly we're wanting to exist, especially alongside other such great resources as We Need Diverse Books. Shout out to the shirt I'm wearing for their fundraiser. And so as far as that goes, stay tuned, but also please let us know what you yourself, if you are someone who's gender diverse on the gender diverse spectrum, please let us know if there's something specific you're looking for, because that can, really influence as we continue to build and grow and really find our niche, I suppose. And if you're interested in getting involved, let us know that too. Like, and so feel free to shoot us an email or DM. We can be found at pronounsmayvary.com. We're working on revamping the website and simplifying things down to just starting at basics. I think we did try to do too much too fast and then all crashed because of life. But we can also be found at Pronouns May Vary on Twitter and Instagram, and we can be found, you can email us at pronounsmayvary@gmail.com. And I can be found at MLE Reads. I'll put that in my name here so you can see it. I can be found everywhere here. Just please feel free to reach out or to tweet at me, to do anything, to say, hey, if you think Pronouns May Vary sounds like something you'd be interested in, let me know what kind of space you're looking for. Is there something that you have an expertise in that you're like, hey, I have done this navigating school visits thing and I've got a system in place. I'd love to share that with up and coming people who maybe don't have that and don't know who to ask. And I'll be like, yes, let's do a panel. That sounds amazing, or whatever the case may be. And I'm rambling. I feel like I'm having an out of body experience right now. This has been the most emotionally healing thing and something that I've personally really needed, just having this event. So thank you again to Alison and Alex for bringing this together, because I emailed Alison again a year ago, like, hey, you don't have any idea who I am, but I've heard great things about you, and maybe you'd be interested in talking to me further. And she has been just utter delight. And when I, was struggling with things and didn't send her an email for 3 months, and then did again, hey, remember me? Sorry, I'm dying a little bit mentally. I'm back though. Can we try again? She immediately replied the next day and was like, absolutely, let me know what you need. Let's do this. And there's especially with things with mental health, I feel like there's not a lot of people who have that receptivity and that openness and understanding. And without bringing any sort of shame into it. So I'm crying. I've just appreciated that so much, and has made this such a great experience. And I'm so excited to see what we do next and how we move forward with this. And again, that comes from other people letting me know and letting us know, hey, what is something you need? What space do you see that there's a gap that maybe I personally don't see. Like as a white person, maybe it's a gap I don't see. What do you see that we can bring in to all assist each other? Whether that's someone more established, mentoring someone up and coming, and just having those casual connections set up. And I'm going to stop talking because I am just rambling. But please
It's
feel free to reach
amazing,
out and let me
though.
know.
Yeah, I think that's it. It's like, of course, I'm going to not say exactly right, but I love being in a space with Noni who validates growth and change and continuing to seek. And that, I think, is what you're doing. And that's a really special place to be. And so tonight is all about support. Tonight is all about celebration. And thank you for what you're beginning with Pronouns May Vary. I think it's amazing. I want to thank everyone for being here tonight, for taking time with all of us. I hope you too are celebrating stories. I hope that you'll be sharing them with us, not just during Pride Month, but all year long. We have to keep our support going. We have to keep celebrating. We have to keep the joy going. A special thanks really to our team here at the Highlights Foundation. Every day I am amazed by the work that you do. They make events like this free and possible for all of us. If you are able to support us in this work, specifically tonight, in supporting stories like we have shared, we hope that you'll consider making a donation to one of our scholarships. I'm going to put 2 links in here. One is for our Kidlit Pride Scholarship. The other is for our Transgender Scholarship for Picture Book Storytellers. Thank you, panelists, so much for being here, for saying yes when you probably don't have time to say yes to one more thing. We're so appreciative of you, of the work that you're doing, of the stories you're sharing. Alex, anything to add before we sign off tonight?
Y'all made me cry. And I don't forgive you. But I do love
She
you.
does.
So I do.
George, anything to add before we sign off tonight?
Thank you. This was a lovely evening. Great way to celebrate.
Really, really great way. Happy Pride to one and all. Be safe, be good to one another, and we'll see you next time. Good night.